In this video, we'll cover the basics of VM instances in Zadara Compute. VM instances are the bread and butter of your compute infrastructure, and they include many useful features that we'll cover here. A VM instance can be created in two ways, either by going to the Images page, selecting an image, and clicking Launch, or by going to the Instances page under Compute, and clicking Create from here. To create a VM, we enter a name. Next, we select how we're going to install this VM, either from an image, an ISO, or an existing volume. Images can be used to create cloud-native instances, which utilize Cloud Init to pre-configure the OS and add your SSH keys for access. While not all images include this functionality, most OS vendors include a cloud-ready image that can be used. ISOs can be used to launch traditional OS installers from the ubiquitous ISO format. Once you've selected the image, ISO, or volume you wish to boot from, you must select an instance type. The instance type defines the virtual hardware that your VM instance will have. You'll see a number of Zadara instance types, prefixed with Z, as well as a number of AWS types for convenience. For most cloud images, you'll need to select or create a key pair. If you're generating a new key pair, remember to save the private key as you will not be able to download it again later. There are several options you can enable for your new VM instance. You can choose whether the VM instance powers up immediately upon creation. The next enables high availability. This will tell Zadara Compute to start the VM back up again if it ever sees it stop unexpectedly. If your VM crashes or does an unordered shutdown, Zadara Compute will start it back up again. Finally, there's the Protect from Deletion option. This is an extra toggle to help prevent accidental deletion. The next option is Create Multiple, which can be used to create multiple VMs with the same configuration. On the second page, we configure the storage. We select a storage pool and the size. You can also add additional volumes by clicking Add. Here you can either create or attach existing volumes. On the third page, we configure the networking. All VMs must have at least one network. For each network you configure, select a subnet. You can optionally assign an IP, but if you leave this blank, an IP will be assigned. Next, you can enter a DNS name. By default, this will take the name of your VM. And finally, you can assign security groups. You can click Finish Now, but you can optionally go to the fourth page. This page contains optional configurations. If you're using a cloud image, you can add a Cloud Init config to automatically create users, configure additional network interfaces, install packages, and so on. This uses the industry standard Cloud Init, which we can't cover here. Consult the Cloud Init documentation for more details. You can also add tags and additional metadata. Once the VM has finished spawning, the status will show active. You can now connect directly to the VM with the Connect button. Since this instance was created from a cloud image, the OS has already been installed and minimally configured. If this was a Linux machine, we could now connect directly using the SSH key. Since this is a Windows machine, we'll first need to retrieve the randomly generated administrator password. This can be done with the Get Password option. To retrieve the password, we need to provide the private key from this key pair, either by uploading it or pasting the contents in. This feature can only be used to retrieve the initial random password. Once we log in and change the administrator password, this feature can no longer be used. If we look more closely at this page, we can see that the top of the page includes a summary of core information about this VM instance. We can also see tabs along the bottom for associated resources, such as volumes. All VMs will have at least one boot volume, but additional volumes can be created and attached. Likewise, all instances will have at least one virtual interface, but virtual interfaces on additional subnets can be created. Let's take a look at some of the actions that can be performed on a VM instance. You can start, stop, and delete a VM instance. We already saw the Connect option. There's also the ability to modify. Instance type, firmware type, and operating system cannot be modified while the VM is running. There are two options that we can toggle. Protect from Deletion and VNC access can be toggled on and off. This provides admins with the ability to use the Connect option for this VM, and can be toggled on temporarily during a support call. The extend option can be used to expand the boot volume of your VM instance. Remember, you'll probably need to extend the file system on this volume to make use of the additional space. There are many additional options under the More menu. Force stop can be used to force the shutdown of a VM instance if your OS is not responding to the stop command. Recovery mode is a special mode that can be used to boot Windows instances that are missing the virtualization drivers. More details about this can be found in our guides. Another useful feature found here is the Create Image button. The Create Image option allows you to create a new image from this VM that can be used to spin up new VM instances. To guarantee consistency, the default is to shut the VM down to take a snapshot before starting it again. We strongly recommend against disabling this. Another useful tool is the Snapshot feature, which allows you to create moment-in-time snapshots of your VM and volume. And the Test Connectivity tool can be useful in debugging Layer 2 and Layer 3 networking issues by sending an arping or ping test from the DHCP server of the VPC to your VM instance. As always, please click on the Help menu for more detailed documentation and a link to the Support Center.